everybody. And congratulations to all the participants who have presented and the winners and those who will still win this evening. Some very good work and keep up the good work. I'm here on a different note. I'm not here to talk about design per se, a little bit offbeat. I just need to sort of move ahead. I'm going to show you a few images which we all sort of encounter every day across the country of people not having proper access. We have used today words like inclusive, accessible, universal. They all sort of interchange at sort of philosophical level. And we also call it equitable, which means we are kind of designing for everybody. People with disabilities, permanent, temporary, children, pregnant women, older people, so forth. Currently, this is a 2011 census, and more than 3 million people have been officially registered as handicapped in India. Various types of disabilities. These are the various percentage. 20% is physical mobility, so that's one that is most commonly seen. Not many of you know, or maybe I think the senior architects here of course know, that there is a law now in India which has been sort of cooking since 1995, which is called the Persons with Disabilities Act. And now with the latest current version, 2016, and now there's amendment 2021, this law enables people with disabilities to register and actually have like an Aadhaar card, like a unique ID, through which they're able to get a lot of the rights that they're supposed to have like common people, like right to work, access to public transportation, and various other things. Now, what this act has done over the years and so India is has signed a UN declaration with 140, 50 other countries, which enable the governments to enact regulation to help people with disabilities to be able to live a normal life. So the government over the years has issued various guidelines through various ministries. These are only about selected 12 or 15 of them. And we can see through each one of them how it directly impacts architectural design. And not only architectural design, it also includes civil engineers, developers, interior designers, product designers, a whole gamut of the building industry. So it's quite interesting whenever you happen to be working on a project to do with any of these sort of specifics, like say a railway station, a bus stop, airport, something, please refer to these guidelines. These guidelines are slowly percolating into the regulations through, this is a government campaign which has been quite active. This campaign actually is at the forefront of everything that at nation level that we are doing. And every state in India has a disabilities commissioner who is an IAS officer ranked person. And their job is to basically take complaints and notify regarding complaints to the concerned departments. So let's say you're a person with certain disabilities, you're qualified, you go for a job somewhere, you are refused a job, you can complain. If you get a job, you're unable to access the building, you can complain. If you're able to get the job, access the building, not have accessible toilet, you can complain. So your right really goes up to a very, very high level, and people are using this left, right, center. So before you even wake up tomorrow, you'll be in your design practice, you may have somebody really come up to you and say, "Arey, iska kya hua?" It's happened to me personally, so I'm sharing with you. And of course, there are hundreds of NGOs working in this sector. So every city, every town, I'm sure you also would come across NGOs who are very active in this. These are the 10 major areas under which we are having guidelines given. And these guidelines don't literally mean that they have all these design issues sorted out. Guidelines are quite general, and then there are other agencies which produce the guidelines. So I'll come to that. So for example, height of curbs, access to bus stops, all this, any street in India has obstacles, even for an absolutely average normal person. If you go to a mall or a cinema, typical condition, person, blind person, people having to cross busy streets. Then there is guidelines for roadways and road transportation, so to do with buses, This is a decent example from a BRTS system in Ahmedabad, where at least the level of the bus and the bus stop is at par through a accessible ramp. But then this happens where you do not have those conditions, and then makeshift arrangements are made. So everywhere in design, we can make things better by really understanding and solve problems. I think really at the end of the day, what design is solving problems, like very, very practical, simple problems. So there are all sorts of ideas being thrown out across the country. And of course, with every design, there is always economics involved. So, people show designs where everything is controlled through, all this super technology. It's sometimes not necessary. You can do with very simple things. Railways is a huge thing. This is a typical railway situation. We see it every time on railway stations. Then they made this special car for them, but nobody can get in it. Yeah. Then they made ramps outside to access the railway platform, but then to access the bogie, so temporary plywood ramp has to be brought by somebody. And so it's where this law also really comes from is human rights, and the first and foremost thing human right wants to do is preserve dignity. So any design we do is to preserve dignity of everybody. Slowly we see that tactile blocks have come on the Bombay suburban lines. Also, they have elevators now provided. Now with metro, suddenly the scale changed, because metro is sort of an imported technology, sometimes sponsored by a foreign government, like in the case of the metro or the high-speed line in Gujarat. It's Japanese government. Everything is done by the spec of the Japanese government. So all these things help us jumpstart. Like in everything in India, we have jumpstarted in computers, in mobile technology, so many things. So nothing wrong with it. So when you have something at grade, it's much easier to transit. It's obvious. But then you have that huge gap. Then Braille at railway stations. So for people to be able to find out wayfinding at railway stations. Airports, huge thing. Now, for example, the Bombay airport, designed by a US firm, has everything incorporated. It just came with the package. Because Americans have the ADA, Americans Disabilities Act, and it's so strong. And in fact, you'll be surprised that Act came about in force in the late 70s after the Vietnam War, when all the injured people came back home and they had to be rehabilitated. They all started demanding, jobs, access to public transportation, and only in the 90s has the American Act become so powerful that now it's considered to be the highest in the world. So now you see at airports everywhere, we are seeing facilities improve. You have less and less of level differences across large areas. Hyderabad has installed even these lifts where they are unable to provide for ramps. Reserved seating for people. Government has also issued guidelines for tourism, because naturally the rights of people to travel extends to tourism then, not just movement. So now they also want to make all tourist spots accessible. Of course, Taj Mahal being the first one. Then ASI has also started doing that for monuments across the country, as you can see here in Delhi. There's also special guidelines for religious places. This goes on and on and on. So they want to make all religious places also accessible, because now you can't stop people from going to worship. Healthcare, of course, that's when we really start realizing the need for access, when we have a fracture or broken back or something and we can't walk up to a place. Sports, Paralympics. So now swimming pools, skating parks, playgrounds, everything is being made accessible for people with disabilities to participate equally in sports. That's a playground in Bhubaneswar. Tennis facilities for people with mobility issues. Huge sector, education, from very primary schools, also in the villages, all the way up to universities, IITs, architecture schools, very important. And of course, with this in the images, you see that there are so many products also being used by people for being assisted to able to move. So product designers, industry, everybody plays a big role in this. It's not just architectural design. This act also covers the rights for people to access information, which is like a huge thing that the government is now facing. Like people unable to go and read something, able to use internet, able to read news. So there's a whole campaign going on to improve access to information. Banking sector, education, everywhere. In scientific institutes. Civil rights. Now, if you have to go and vote, or you have to go to a police station, or to a court of law, what happens? So, a very dear friend of mine is sitting here, Jamshed Mistry. I remember many, many years back when we started working on this in 2003-04. He was one of the first people who brought about litigation in the Mumbai High Court to make the court on the first floor accessible, because he got the judge to walk down because his client or somebody could not go up. So they immediately issued orders to install elevator in the Bombay High Court. This was in 2005 or 6. Postal systems, banks. Also now, Home Ministry has, 5 minutes more. 3 minutes more? Okay. So, Ministry for, Home Ministry for police stations, for jails, for everything. Voting. And then finally we come home in the city after all these big things, where we are controlled by the development control regulation, which is applicable to every architect working anywhere in India. So through that act, so universal design is the grand umbrella under which we have understood equitable design. This is me 20 years ago doing some audit for AMA building in Ahmedabad. Then we prepared this manual, which was being used by a lot of architects for many years before all the government guidelines came out. Here's Professor Doshi and Anand Patel launching that manual with the chairman of the Urban Development Authority in Ahmedabad. This is the latest guideline which anybody wants to refer to, which is produced by IIT Roorkee. And currently it's considered to be the best amongst the lot. This is a development control regulation. And this is a few examples of buildings that we have been designing over the last 20 years, which have all access features. This is the Kartavya Path in Delhi. CG Road, Ahmedabad. This is IIM. This is Hansgrohe's design for accessible bathroom, which anybody could have seen while doing the competition and learned few lessons. Simple, efficient, elegant, economical. And the industry has to keep supporting us to do what we are doing. So they need to make products which are accessible and things like that. Thank you.